Sorry, just a little behind.
Hello.
Oh,
How are
sorry.
you?
One of my cats decided that he desperately needed my love and attention before I could come back
Of
up here.
course.
So, yes,
Well,
yes.
look at who's just decided they want love and attention. Literally,
Oh,
as I sat down.
oh, hi, Charlie.
You
How
can
are
say hello,
things?
Charlie. You can say hello, Amanda. How
Hey,
is
sweetie.
he?
Yeah, how's he? How are you? How's your daughter? How's everything?
At this point in time, we've got a bit of a homeostasis, which is good. He's a
Yeah.
little bit cross with me because yesterday I went out for about, I think it was about 7 hours, 7.5. Oh, he wasn't happy with me last night. And this morning when I got up and had a shower, he looked at me as if to say, are you going out again today? Are you going out again today?
You better not
I
be
looked at him
leaving
and
me.
I said, well, darling, yeah, I am, but not right now. So,
Oh, poor little
yeah. How are
boy.
you? You're looking great. Like,
I'm
you
feeling
know,
better.
it's great.
I feel like the medication's actually doing something. I mean, it's turning my stomach too, but that's just one of the side effects. So I'm
Yeah.
feeling better. I mean, and
Oh, great.
as far as like that little glow that I have going on, that's all the lighting.
Better turn that off, hadn't I? Yeah, yeah. Look, we do what we've got to do, don't we?
Absolutely. We get through it. So
We do.
we've been talking a lot about possibilities and stuff. And there were a few days where we were seriously contemplating moving to Texas.
Oh, wow. Because?
Yeah. Um, he was looking into the possibility of having a job down there. So, and with that
Okay.
possibility, we're not finding anything here. We're not finding anything in Denver. He's applied to pretty much everything he can find. And
Wow.
down in Texas is a company that he used to work for a long time ago
Hmm.
before he
Hmm.
ever moved to Colorado. So he actually lived there for a little while with his family when his kids were growing up. So we still have some friends
Oh,
and
okay.
connections there. But what he didn't know was that they have offices in Colorado Springs, which is like an hour and a half, maybe an hour's drive from where we are right now. And it would be a tough commute for a little while. But we were already looking at moving to Castle Rock anyway, which is halfway between the two.
Oh,
So
wow.
if that works out and he can use this connection to be able to get a job at
Oh,
this place, then our life is right back on track. So,
that's fantastic.
yeah,
Fingers
fingers
crossed.
crossed.
Everything's crossed.
Yes,
Oh, wow. So
including my
has
eyes.
he actually been um in contact with this person, or like where is
Yeah.
it actually at?
He reached out to what's he calling Rafi? He calls him Rafi. His name is Raphael. And
Mhm.
Rafi's kind of been coaching him through the whole thing, and they've been going back and forth on everything. And um, so he's applied to the jobs down in Colorado Springs already, and we're just hopeful for a callback.
Oh, yeah,
It would be
I can
amazing.
feel it. I can feel it. It's happening.
I hope so. Oh my gosh. If that were to happen, yeah, it could be a tough commute for a little while until we get officially moved. But that
Mm,
means we'd still be on track to getting the house that in the area that we wanted. No,
mm.
the original house that we were looking at is long gone by now, but there's
Yeah,
others that keep popping up,
lovely.
and some of them are
That's good.
more
'Cause I wouldn't
affordable.
come and visit you in Texas as much as I love you. I just wouldn't come there. Texas is not where I want to go.
Well, I mean, it would have been Dallas, which is one of the more liberal pockets of Texas. You know, most large cities get a little bit more liberal. Most outskirts get a little bit more conservative. Um, we'd be living on the
Yeah,
outskirts of Dallas if that's what we decided to do, but it's still Texas.
yeah. Look, I'm joking, but yeah,
Kind of.
it's
I
such
know
a
you're kind of joking.
well, it's not exactly where I'd want to come, but
Right.
I want to come and visit. So,
Yeah.
wherever you are, I will come and visit. just, maybe my eyes would be open to different things.
You never know.
You
Texas
never,
is a really pretty place.
mm,
It's got its golden moments. It really does.
yeah,
It can
yeah.
be
Well,
stunning. I've been there a couple of times. I've never lived there, but I think if I lived there, I would get tired of it. But one of the things that we were looking at was that if we sold this place, the house that we would get for the same amount of money just to be able to keep all the equity in the house
mm,
would be palatial.
wow,
Housing prices are so high here in Colorado that if we took every
really?
penny out of this place and put it in a place down there, we couldn't find a house that was for the same amount of money because everything was already too big. At that point, you're going, so the house here is worth, we think about 550,000. If we went down
Mm,
there, we were finding these gorgeous mansion type 3-story beautiful homes with 3-car garages and landscaped land for like 450,000 and to have like 475. If the next step above that is like $1 million massive mansion ranches, so we don't need
wow.
anything like that.
Do you really need a 3-bed, 3-level manicured garden place? Do you like,
Well, I
could
don't
you
know
go
if
for
they,
something a little bit
the plan was to keep all the equity in the house because
right?
if you don't do that, then you have to pay taxes on whatever you keep.
Oh, that's right. The tax system is different there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of screwed up. But we're still
It's
going
very
to,
screwed up.
but that is exactly what we're looking for in Castle Rock is either a 3 or 4 bedroom, 3-story home with a 3-car garage. Um, and the reason for that is because we've got grandbabies on the way. We've got kids that are coming to
Yeah.
visit. I need my office. He
Yeah.
needs his in-home office. He wants to make sure that
Yeah.
I have an art space, all of this stuff. And
Mm,
he prioritizes my art space over him having an office some days. And
seriously?
yeah, yeah,
You hit the golden jackpot when you met him, didn't you?
I know I did, man. I know I did. He's amazing. I had the most bizarre dream last night. I dreamed we went to go and visit his grandmother in Oklahoma, and she was so upset at us, well, at circumstances, because she had not been well and wasn't able to make it out for our wedding, that she wanted us to get married again, which she didn't know about the first one. So we got married a third time
That's
just so
hilarious.
she could be there. We got married in her living room.
We need to get started. I'm just looking at the clock.
Yep, I guess we do. We got 2 minutes to where it says 30 exactly. But if you're ready to get started, let's rock and roll.
Well, I
Um,
just thought we could have a more of a chat after.
yes, absolutely. Do
Yeah.
you want to do the intro? You want me to do it?
I'm happy to do it. I did it.
Okay.
I've been doing it the last couple of weeks.
Yeah,
Continue on.
good. I'm having fun with you doing it. Okay, I'm gonna change this to 30 so we know. And it's already recording. I'll have to cut all this stuff out and go for it.
Hi, Amanda. What a wonderful day it is, and it's so exciting to be back here with you. How are you?
Fantastic. Things are getting much colder here in Colorado. I have a feeling everything's getting a little bit warmer out there in Tasmania, right?
It is. The sun is shining, skies are blue. We had a bit of a rain shower, spring rain shower this morning, but it's going to be a beautiful day.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
You are the sunshine in my life right now because let me tell you, there ain't none outside.
Oh dear. So today we're talking about heart palpitations and how heart palpitations are linked to trauma. So would you like to just tell us a little about what heart palpitations are to begin with?
Absolutely. So, a heart palpitation, the medical definition, it's defined as an unpleasant awareness of the beating of the heart. It is one of the most common complaints in patients referring to cardiac clinics. This
Mm,
is when it was linked to trauma, people started to call it a benign problem because it doesn't mean that it's a
yes.
heart attack or anything like that. But that doesn't mean that it is benign to us. This is something that's still very serious and still needs to be taken seriously and looked into.
exactly. Oh, when I was doing my research, I saw that term and I thought, how could you call it benign? It's not benign.
You're right.
It's quite a serious thing here we're talking about. But yeah, so an example of what you might be feeling when you're having a heart palpitation is that your heart is racing or it's thumping. It might be skipping beats. And you feel it when you're sitting still or moving slowly. You could also feel faint, breathless, or you could be experiencing chest pain. So um, it could be heart related, but when we're looking at it from a trauma lens, it's very much part of that fight flight response.
Right. Absolutely. And a lot of people confuse heart palpitations with a heart attack because there is another little symptom that sometimes people experience, and they think that it means they are experiencing numbness. They're experiencing that numbness of the arm that you get with a heart attack,
Yes.
and that's the tingling in the hands. Because of heart
Mm,
palpitations, you can experience tingling in the hands. It's
thank you
not
for adding
fun.
that. I forgot that. Yeah.
Yeah. And some palpitations can be, the indication of a life threatening problem like a heart attack or arrhythmias. Most of them don't have any serious underlying heart disease. If you do have heart palpitations, you definitely want to get checked out by a doctor. But also understand that if your doctor doesn't find anything wrong with you, that might not be the right doctor to see. That might be
Mm,
the wrong type of doctor. You might need to see a psychiatrist.
indeed. Indeed. Um, one of the things also that I was looking at in my research, just following on from that, is that ongoing chronic stress that where you're experiencing heart palpitations can actually lead to heart disease because your body is under constant stress.
Yeah,
So if you have experienced extreme trauma and one of the outcomes of that is heart palpitations, it's important to find treatment for that because it can actually impact on your life in terms
right.
of your mortality. Yeah,
Now, can you remember any time in your life where you could feel your heart racing?
several.
Yeah. Can you
Several
remember
times.
can you remember any times where you felt your heart racing and you were not in immediate danger?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that happens a lot or has happened a lot. It's very much slowed down now because I'm dealing in a positive way with my trauma symptoms. Um, but yes, absolutely. There was a period of time where I was actually having heart palpitations continuously, over a long period of time, several months. And I actually ended up having to go and get all sorts of tests for arrhythmia, and they thought I had some really bizarre syndrome called Brugada syndrome, and tests after test. It was actually stressing me out doing more tests. And in the end, I thought, I don't want to go down this track anymore. I'm just going to stop and just see where this goes. And over time, the heart palpitations slow down because I was actually employing a lot of meditation techniques and, the various other things that we've talked about in previous episodes about helping us to calm down.
Yeah. Well, panic attacks are one of the leading causes for heart palpitations.
Yeah, yeah.
So, panic attacks, this is something that I know we're going to get into a lot more depth in later on in some of our future episodes. But
Mm-hmm.
we talked, I think, in some of the very, very first episodes about some of the releases for panic attacks. If you're having a panic attack, if you use the five senses technique, that's great.
Mm,
That's a great way of grounding yourself and coping and understanding that where you are is not a dangerous place, unless, of course, it is, and then get out. But there's also the breathing techniques. So sitting down with your hand on your stomach and your hand over your heart
mm,
and just breathing in your nose to the count of four and out your mouth to the count of four. It just this kind of activity can help to calm the panic attack and in
mm.
turn helps to calm the palpitations.
Yes,
So
yeah.
and the palpitations and the panic attacks and all this stuff happens when stress hormones are triggered. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what we mean by triggered. Instead of somebody saying that they're triggered because they dropped their latte on the floor, we need to have a better understanding of what these words actually mean and use them in the proper context, because not
Mm.
using them in the proper context is damaging to those who actually experience these symptoms.
Exactly, exactly. Actually, I've got a perfect example of last night. I was attending a school production. My ex-colleague invited me along. She's a director, and I thought, yeah, I need to do this. I need to try it. And this particular school, I had a few traumatic events and ended up leaving because it was never going to be resolved in that place. And as I was driving there, I started to feel a little bit anxious. I could feel my stomach churning. And, I did the breathing exercises, tried to calm myself down. And by the time I parked the car, I thought, yeah, I can do this. And then as I started walking towards the theatre, I started getting heart palpitations. So, and I was triggered, literally just being in that space again triggered my autonomic nervous system. And yeah, away I went. But
Oh,
I did what we've talked to other people about. I employed those breathing techniques and I did the five senses and I walked in and I was fine.
oh,
Yeah.
that is amazing. I want to give you a standing ovation, but I'm going to be too lazy and not stand. Um, that is amazing. You are putting this stuff to practical use and you're already finding benefits for it. Isn't that cool? We've been
Mm,
doing this
mm.
less than a year.
It
I'm
is
so proud
cool.
of
It
you.
is cool.
Yeah.
Thank you. But, like for our listeners, I think it's so important to realize that it doesn't matter how long it's been between a traumatic event and now, um, things can still be triggered. And you may not even be aware that you're being triggered, but your body is responding. And the heart palpitations are one example of that. And it's important to then having that awareness and having that knowledge is to go, okay, what can I do about it rather than allowing it to manifest in our brain and going, oh my gosh, I'm having a heart attack, and going down that track.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of people will also experience these heart palpitations when they're facing something like a phobia.
Oh,
Um,
yes.
and this is something that I run into a lot on one of my other podcasts. A lot of people don't know that I have another podcast called That's a Phobia. And I'm just basically, because I was curious, I started to explore all the different phobias and all the different reactions that the body has to this stuff, kind of like we do with trauma reactions. And there's
Mm,
a
mm.
lot of similarities. It's bizarre.
Yeah.
But back to our purpose today, there's been a lot of studies out there that have been done on this stuff. And they show that the patients that are suffering from PTSD usually have an increased resting heart rate, also, which can be easier to
Yes.
find a higher beating. Um, they have an increased startle reaction. It's easier to scare somebody. They have an increased heart rate and blood pressure responses to trauma triggers, kind of like when you were at the theater. Um,
Mm,
and heart palpitations are one of the most common complaints in people that are being referred to cardiologists,
yeah.
when many of them, if they're trauma survivors, need to be referred to a different kind of doctor.
And that's the thing. I think medical practitioners need to be aware. And I don't know that enough of them are actually looking at that link between physical and mental health
Right.
and the links with trauma because, essentially so many people have had that reaction and are trauma survivors. They're not having a heart attack or they don't have ongoing heart issues.
Right.
And you can do what I went down the track of, multiple investigations to get you back to square one.
Right. Right. And heart palpitations can also come from things like, too much caffeine. I've done that to myself. Nicotine. I did this to myself one night in a theater. I got to tell you this story here in just a minute. Some medical conditions, but also certain medications. So it
Yes.
is important to
Yes.
recognize if there's any kind of changes in your life around this stuff. It could be a physical thing. a physical
Mm.
external impact. But
Yeah.
if you have experienced trauma and you're having these heart palpitations and you cannot for the life of you discover why, and your doctor doesn't know why, this means this is a trauma trigger that is manifesting itself internally and involuntarily.
Mm. Mm.
So the story about the nicotine, it was my birthday in what was it? 2016. So a few years ago now. I was going to the Amundsen Theater in Los Angeles. No, not 2016. Sorry, I think it was a little before that. Maybe the year before. I was going to the Amundsen Theater. I was going to see Angela Lansbury in a play
Oh.
called Blythe Spirit. And
Hmm.
if you know who Angela Lansbury is, she was the star of Murder, She Wrote. Oh gosh, she was in all these old black and white movies I loved. Uh, and if you know the play Blythe Spirit, it was also a movie, an old black and white movie about a man whose wife passed away and he's haunted by her ghost. And
Mm.
it's this really fun story. And Angela Lansbury plays the very flamboyant gypsy fortune teller lady. She's going to be doing this seance for them. And this woman was in her 90s. And I was trying my best to quit smoking. I took nicotine gum with me because I didn't want to have to think about cigarettes all night. I wanted to stay right there the whole thing. I wanted to be glued to my seat. I was so excited. And I'm watching this play, and there's the husband. The wife has passed. And I'm waiting. I'm waiting. I'm waiting. Where's Angela Lansbury? Where is she? Where is she? Where is she? All of a sudden, the curtain over at the side moves just a little bit. And Angela Lansbury comes skipping, literally skipping and leaping across the stage. It was the most incredible thing I've ever seen in my life. A 90-year-old woman prancing around like she's a teenager. Unbelievable. The rest of the play, I couldn't move from my seat. And I was so excited and so enthralled to just be there in the presence of this great woman that I chomped on that nicotine gum until there was nothing left. I had the jitters. I had a sore stomach. I thought I was going to vomit on the poor guy next to me. I was shaking
Oh no.
everywhere. Oh, but it was worth it.
So the key to giving up smoking is just go and see a play, from what I hear,
With nicotine gum.
with nicotine gum.
Never touch the stuff again, cigarettes or gum.
Good, good. I'm glad to hear it.
Oh my gosh, my
I'm
heart
glad
was
to.
racing so hard that day though. But that's
Mm.
one of the random experiences of having that external thing. Uh, One that's not quite so fun was I know I've talked about this a couple times before, but driving down the LA freeway not too long after I had gotten away from Scotland and having my heart racing so hard that I was starting to develop tunnel vision while driving over an actual bridge and on the overpass in LA, and I couldn't see where I was going.
That's scary.
And it made everything worse. It made the heart
Mm.
palpitations worse. I was
Mm. Mm.
terrified. I thought that day that I was going to die of a heart attack. I was pretty convinced. It was severe. And there were
Mm.
no external components. I had not had any caffeine. I was not smoking. I wasn't chomping on no nicotine gum. I was on no medications. And I could not go to the doctor because I didn't have medical insurance. I had to
Oh
live
wow.
with these heart palpitations for months before they finally started to calm down.
Wow. And do you know what happened that triggered the calming down? Like what what did you do? How did they calm down? I'm really intrigued by this.
Well, the first thing I needed to do was try and figure out what caused them in the first place.
Mm.
Um, I know that we have a tendency to compartmentalize our brains. So if a
Yes, we do.
man, yeah. So if a man in a red shirt abuses you 20 years down the road, you might see somebody, man, woman, child, in a red shirt of the exact same color cross the street in front of you, and you might
Mm.
be triggered instantly. And you have
Exactly.
no idea why.
Mm.
For
Mm.
me, I had been driving down the freeway and I nearly missed my turn because I was deep in thought over something. And I went quickly over to the exit and I got off the freeway. I didn't think about it at the time, but he had a way of erratic driving.
Oh,
And when
wow.
I pulled that, it might not have been erratic, but it was a sudden change that
Yes.
I wasn't expecting, even though I was the one that did the change. It was
Mm,
something that I wasn't expecting, and it
yeah.
absolutely triggered me.
Yeah.
Um, to be able to start to calm down from that, I took an extreme sense of a need for control, which we did
Mm,
talk about previously on another
mm-hmm,
episode. That was back July 11th is when that episode aired. That was our 11th episode for people that are looking for it. Um,
mm-hmm,
but that need for control consisted of me making sure that I was well prepared for anything and everything that I could be. And we should all do that when we're in trafficking. Don't make last
mm,
minute turns. Don't cut somebody off. Put your phone down when you're driving, please. Uh, I'll get off my soapbox now. But that need for control helped me to be able to move beyond that and help to retrain my brain. So that's a great example of how that need for control was actually useful at that time. But then I had to break
mm.
that habit afterward.
Can I just add in there, and you can tell us about that in a moment, that this links quite nicely, well, not nicely, but to our previous episode recently on hypervigilance,
Yeah.
because that's exactly where you went down the track. So you had the heart palpitations, you identified what was going on, and you needed that control. And so it made you hypervigilant. You
Yeah.
were constantly making sure that you were in a safe space, scanning the space, being, as you said, being prepared. So your whole life for the next few months, from the sounds of it, was on tenterhooks.
Yeah. Absolutely. Everything in my life I had to pay close attention to. And it was no longer
Mm,
just who else is in this room with me and where are the exits. It was
mm,
everything. I had to pay
mm,
attention to everything. And
mm,
that need for control meant that I'm the one that drove everywhere when I went anywhere with anybody else. I had to be in
mm,
control. And the
mm,
hypervigilance meant that people were not allowed to sit in the back seat behind me. That often meant we would have to take two or three vehicles to get somewhere because I'll have somebody next to me, not behind me. I can't see you. So it started to interfere with friendships and it got in the way of doing events and stuff. So not
yeah.
fun.
So wow. I can feel it. I can feel it in my body. You're talking about it right now. My stomach's churning, my heart's racing listening to you. So let's turn it to something positive then. So tell us about how you then managed to shift away from that. So we went down the track of the hypervigilance, the need for control. Where to next in this story?
The biggest part really was identifying the triggers, figure out what it is
Yeah.
that's causing these reactions and start there. Um, then I had to figure out relaxation techniques. At the time, I had never heard of the five senses technique. So this
Mhm.
was about the time when I first started learning about it. I knew
Oh,
nothing
fantastic.
of it.
Yeah.
And I did try to seek um, professional help. But like I said, at the time, I didn't have any kind of insurance, and there was no possible way of me being able to afford anything like that. So, what I
Yeah.
did instead was I got really creative and I started reaching out through social media to find if there were other people out there that had experienced stuff like this and to learn more from them. How did they deal
Wonderful.
with it? What was it that caused it to happen in them? I joined a
Yeah.
couple of trauma survivor groups on Facebook and made sure that right away I blocked anybody who was a complete Debbie Downer because I didn't need more trauma in my life. I needed less.
Exactly.
And I developed a really healthy boundary there. That was very important. And I just
Yeah.
started really working on it a little bit at a time. And I made sure that I had patience for myself.
Mm,
If I didn't
mm,
have the kind of patience from myself that I really needed, there was going to be a major issue. I desperately needed to just stop, take a breath, and remember I'm only human.
mm, mm. And I like the fact that you were able to get to that point because it's such an important thing for us trauma survivors to actually get um, to be able to give ourselves a break and not constantly, because I found myself at points, and I know a lot of other trauma survivors have as well, um, just putting yourself down
Yeah.
because, you know, things have just clouded the way that you think. And we see the world in a negative way, and everything around us is black.
Yep.
It's not, the rainbow colors, it's black, and um, we don't see a way out. But what you did was able to get to that point of seeing a way out and having that positive approach, not just about getting out of that situation, but giving yourself that self-care, that self-love. And that's the most critical thing, I think, about trauma recovery. I was going to say survival, but it's not. It's recovery.
Yeah.
Trauma recovery is really important to find ourselves and find that peace within ourselves and be comfortable in our own skin.
And when I was going through that, I didn't even know it was called self-love. I just saw it as something that was necessary.
Yeah,
And that's
yeah.
exactly what it is. Take all the titles
Mm,
away. This is something that we need.
mm, mm. It's a basic human need.
Yeah.
It's a basic human need. Um, so have you come across Maslow's hierarchy of needs before?
No, tell us about that.
Oh, okay. So Maslow, if I can't remember if he was a psychologist or an anthropologist or something. I can't remember, but it was way back in the 1940s or 50s. He came up with this pyramid of human development. And he said that, as human beings, we have basic needs. So the most basic is that we have a need for safety, for shelter, for water and food, sexual drive, and connection. And then it sort of moves up the pyramid. We need to have a job, we need to have family around us or friendships or whatever, to the point of what is called self-actualization, and that's at the top of the pyramid. And self-actualization is where we are at one with ourselves, at peace with ourselves and our interaction with the rest of the world. And I always thought, growing up, I always thought that self-actualization was, like we just had to have everything together in terms of, we've got our house, we've got a job, we've got a partner, we've got our kids, life's just, coming together. But in actual fact, self-actualization is more than that. It's actually something that starts deep within. And as trauma survivors who are going on that recovery process, we need to really tap into us inside. And dealing with heart palpitations is one part of that journey.
Yeah.
And recognizing what the triggers are that you talked about, and giving yourself that self-love to just be and acknowledge that this is a trauma response. I need this to control. I need to control my environment. It's okay for now, but it's not where I want to be long term. I want to be able to move around in my home, in my community, feeling safe and not looking behind my shoulder every 5 minutes to see what the danger is behind me or
Right.
around me.
Yeah. And some of the other things that really help too. Somebody's going through this. Number one, get enough sleep. I know that can
Yeah.
be hard as a trauma survivor, but your whole world can change when you get enough sleep.
Mm,
Average need is between 7 and 9 hours.
mm,
Get enough sleep. Um, you want to see if you can exercise regularly. If you're not capable of exercising, do ankle lifts to straighten and help to strengthen your legs a little bit, even while you're just sitting in a chair. You can do
mm.
the same thing with holding up a milk jug and just doing basic lifting, and
Yes.
making sure you're doing some kind of physical activity that'll help
Mm,
to lower your heart rate when you're sitting still.
Mm.
Healthy food makes a huge difference. Avoiding
Yeah,
caffeine and alcohol because these things can actually make symptoms worse.
indeed.
And
Indeed.
like
I
I did,
remember,
hmm?
sorry, I was just going to say, I remember drinking 5, 6 coffees a day, and I wondered why I was having heart palpitations at one point in my life.
That'll do it.
That'll do it. Yeah.
Oh
We're
my
going to have to
gosh.
wrap up,
Yeah.
Amanda. So, what are the key things that we want our listeners to go away with after today's session?
Heart palpitations don't always mean you're having a heart attack. Take a deep breath. You're
Yep.
going to be okay. If you feel like it's a heart attack, be seen by a doctor. If you feel like it's a trauma response, be seen by a therapist and have
Mm.
grace and understanding for yourself. You've been through something. Hey, you've seen things, you've experienced things. It's okay to take a step back and relax and breathe. And remember the five senses technique, write it down somewhere. And remember that it's linked to other trauma responses, including the one we're going to be talking about next week. Do you remember which one that is?
I don't know.
Panic disorders.
Oh, yeah.
And
How could I
just
forget that?
just as a brief kind of a snippet tidbit, there are several different types of panic disorders, including generalized anxiety, obsessive compulsive phobias, social anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder. One does not equal the other. These are all individual things that need to be addressed, and we're going to be covering all of them.
Totally. And I've got 2 of those. I've been diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder and complex PTSD. So I
Yep.
have a little bit of an inkling and can share some personal stories next week on our topic. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, as always, it was just such a wonderful treat getting to chat with you and spend a little time with you. And I love you to pieces, and I can't wait for next time.
Me too. I look forward to it and wish all our listeners well and hope they have got something positive out of today's session. So thanks, everybody. Bye for now. Say, I forgot to add.
Hey, don't have too many heart palpitations out there tonight, you guys. It is Halloween. Happy Halloween.